Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy.
This is episode number 101.
101.
When women get bored in the bedroom.
Women get bored in the bedroom?
Ooh, no, that never happens. We're always entertained and excited.
That actually is a really great question. Do women get bored in the bedroom?
Yes.
Of course they do.
Of course we do. And it's such a fascinating topic to me. I love this topic. I could literally talk hours about this topic.
You have a lot of experience in this topic.
Oh, I'm always bored in the bedroom. No, that's not the reason why. It's because I think when we think of boredom, a lot of women, and myself included, we're going to go to kind of one or two concepts, right? The biggest trap is that we are going to think about boredom from a man's context.
Right.
Because we're going to assume boredom means certain things because that's the culture we've been raised in. That's what media shows us, is that men want variety, which is kind of like the opposite of boredom, is to be doing things new and exciting and novelty. And so what our brain does is go, oh, that must mean kinky sex, new positions, let's add toys, or let's play dress up, right? Like, let's dress like a schoolgirl or Princess Leia in her slave outfit when she was the slave of Jabba the Hut. So our brain...
Well, for some reason, a lot of guys like that, but you're
Yes.
talking about the women right now.
Yes. So the women are going to think of the concept of variety or boredom kind of in that lens, because that's what we hear is exciting for men. So we don't even know how to think about it for ourselves.
Well, let me just say this. For anyone that's new to the podcast, oftentimes on our podcast, we talk about these questions and I give the male perspective. But my male perspective, I want to put this out there up front, is probably a little bit different after 20 years. I don't come out and say, well, you women should just give men more sex.
Right.
That is not what I say. That's not what my purpose is. And I don't even believe that. And so this topic is interesting for me too, because as I've learned about intimacy over the years, one of the things I've learned is that what I used to think was variety for me and the things that, aroused me are much different now. And it's not just because I'm older, it's because I've learned more about what you like.
Yeah.
And my desire is to help you. And my desire is actually in this podcast and in our coaching is to help women understand men, not just to give them more sex, but to understand each other in a way where both can enjoy intimacy more.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a great topic because I think this can lead us into a conversation that not only can help women, but also can help men understand what variety would mean for their wife.
Yeah. Because I think it will look very different for women.
Well, yeah.
Very different. And I don't think we even have to have a closet full of costumes, for there to be all kinds of variety.
Now, do you think women know, in general, do you think women know what they actually want when it comes to variety? Or do you think that because our society is so geared toward male variety that some women might not even know what that means for them?
I think that that's probably the second thing that you said is probably very true. It's because women have grown up for the most part learning about sexuality and the sexual side of ourselves from a male's point of view. So, we don't even know how to think of the concept of variety that is not related to how a man would want variety.
What's interesting about this, and I know that we're going to get into a little bit more of a structured conversation, but it's very interesting to me because I think a lot of men think, well, I want more variety because my wife is maybe, I feel like it's a little boring in the bedroom themselves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they only think in terms of what they see in movies or, unfortunately, those men that watch pornography and those kinds of things, But as a man, if you were to say to me, hey, I want more variety in the bedroom, first of all, I'm going to be like, awesome, let's talk about it. Communication's huge. Talking about what we want when it comes to intimacy is huge, and it's something that a lot of people don't do. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. And that's one of the things that we want to help you with, is to learn how to talk about these things. But also, I think because a lot of women don't really know what variety might look like for them, or might not think that their husband would like the variety that maybe they think that they would want, that they just don't want to pursue it. But I'm telling you right now, I think men are totally in for any kind of variety, especially if it's the idea of their wife, even if it's not the idea that they might have initially.
Yeah.
Because it's newness. Any kind of newness is what we like.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be any specific type of newness. We just like newness.
Yeah.
And that should happen constantly. We should have newness in our marriages. And I think that's the key.
And I also want to bring up one other key that I think maybe has been a contributing factor, is that sometimes I think women, again, because we have not been taught about some of these concepts, our brains are going to be they're going to be full of a lot of drama. And our brains like to do this. We may jump to all kinds of conclusions, right? Like, oh, if I add variety, I'm going to become some crazy sex maniac, and I'm going to become addicted to sex, and I'm going to become all these things simply by adding variety. We make the concept of variety mean something is going to drastically change about us. When I'm like, wait a minute, that's not true at all. If the type of people who become sex addicts, like true sex addicts, and head down those paths, they're open to that idea. They want to become that.
Yeah.
You don't just like learn a little bit more about your own sexuality and then become a sex addict.
Well, it might not even be that. It might be that they would feel guilty taking it beyond the procreative purposes of sex, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And some people feel guilty just having sex for the pleasure or the enjoyment of it rather than something deeper or more spiritual, when that isn't what that has to mean. And that's something that, I'll just say this, your Restoring Intimacy course that is on our website, shelly.andersoncoaching.com. It's less than an hour. It's like $20, and that gets you started in just your thinking about intimacy if you have thoughts like that, because it doesn't have to mean that you go dirty or go immoral, right? We're talking about adult things here, and intimacy, and physical intimacy in particular between husband and wife is between you and your husband or you and your wife.
Yeah.
And that's up to you to make it mean whatever it's going to mean. But one of the things that people get caught up on is taking what other people have told them or the way that they are raised, and not being able to detach from the idea that sex should be a certain way when our bodies were given to us by God, and we're to discover what we both feel comfortable with, whatever that means for you.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to bring up this point, because I am constantly very invested with my time in the topic of sex and intimacy and desire. And what does it mean to look at something that's erotic? Like, what contributes to our arousal? And I never touch porn.
And you're not a sex fiend. And
That's
you're not
right.
a sex addict. And you're not at all interested in porn or kinky sex or anything like that.
That's right. And so I want everyone who's listening to really listen to this. When you are diving into these topics, like for self-discovery and to increase your knowledge, that doesn't mean you are for sure going down some crazy path. The amount of time I spend on these topics, and I've never headed down this path because it's not a path I want to go down. I don't want to become some crazy sex monster, so I don't.
Right.
We are always in control of what that path looks like for us. And so I just wanted to put that out there for everybody, that learning and discovering these parts of and these sides of yourself doesn't mean it will turn bad.
And I think this conversation may be different for those that are maybe about to get married and not married yet.
Mm-hmm.
Those people who are newly married and those people who have been married for 40 years, right? We're all on a different path of discovery. And for us, we've been married for 20 years. We've known each other since we were very young.
Yeah.
And so we have a very deep foundation of friendship and all that too. And so we're on a different path than someone who's newly married and maybe has only known their, spouse for 2 years. I mean, that doesn't mean that we're in a better place than them. We all are just on different points of the journey. And the journey, the beauty of it is that you get to learn together. And men and women do generally think very differently about these topics.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we live in a society where the media really leans way more on the male side.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And so what our goal is to help women and men understand what we call the intimacy trek, which really is the process of getting to a place where both are aroused, and it starts with the emotional arousal and those thoughts and those desires that come far before the physical part of it.
Yeah.
And so all of this has to do with, how you lead up to the physical arousal and the actual intercourse and orgasm and afterglow and all those things. But what we're talking about right now, today, is the physical part, which is never isolated.
No.
But we're talking about in the bedroom with sex. Maybe you've been having sex for 40 years and you're really bored of it. Maybe you've been having sex for 2 weeks and you're bored of it or don't like it.
And I think I'm going to surprise you a little bit because what I'm going to talk about is actually before the bedroom.
Okay, great. Well, that actually didn't surprise me. Because
because it's actually, I think for women, a lot of our excitement and variety comes outside of the bedroom before we even enter.
Excellent.
And I think a lot of times we don't consider that as variety, is something that's even happening before the bedroom.
Well, this is going to blow people's minds because this isn't something that people talk about generally.
It's true.
So let's hear it.
Okay. So I first wanted to just talk about, what is desire? Because I think we've mentioned before, when clients come to me, this is where they struggle. They're like, I love my husband. We have a pretty good relationship, but I'm not in the mood. Like, they really struggle with this. And so I wanted to just define desire. Desire is a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wanting something to happen. It's a conscious yearning for something that could be enjoyable and satisfactory. I love that part of the definition is a conscious yearning.
Does that mean that you choose?
It means that we are thinking.
Okay.
We are thinking about it because, again, a lot of my clients are like, well, I either have desire or I don't. The emotion is either there or it's not. And here, by definition, we're learning it has to be taking place in our mind, in our thoughts.
So we can choose to have a yearning.
Yes, we can.
And by choosing to have a yearning, then you're going to be thinking about that yearning more.
Yes.
And you can choose what that yearning looks like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the final part of the definition is a longing or craving for something, a pull towards something, or being drawn to it. And again, this doesn't mean that it has to be sex, right? Because we're going to kind of expand our mind a little bit and say, there are lots of things that can actually pull me in towards my husband, draw me in to want to be closer to him that may not be related to sex at all.
Let me ask you this. So sometimes we talk about people having animal magnetism, right? And as a man, we want to be magnets for women. But what I think you're saying is that that's not what you're talking about.
No.
Right? Like I can make choices to be more attractive to you. There's no doubt. I can choose those things to be more desirable because I've learned what is more desirable for you, and I can choose to do that. But you're not talking about waiting for me to do that. You're talking about making choices that will draw you, that will pull you toward me without me even doing anything.
Yes. And again, we're trying to expand everyone's thinking about this. some of the things that we talk about with variety will draw us in towards you, will draw us in towards our spouse specifically.
Right.
But there are other things we can add in the concept of variety that have nothing to do with you or sex that will still make us want to be closer to you and share our lives with you in an intimate way.
So intimacy, again, isn't just the physical, sexual intimacy. That's just one small part of it.
Yes.
Intimacy really is connection with the one that you love,
Yeah.
whether it's sexual or not. And most types of intimacy are not sexual.
That's right.
And actually, I've said this before, as I've learned more and more about this and more about myself, I love this physical sex part. I love that. But that isn't the end all be all. And if I could choose to get rid of a part of intimacy, like I wouldn't want to get rid of that part. But there are other parts of intimacy that that bring me much more happiness than the actual sex does. Now, don't get me wrong. I love sex, okay? I'm a man and I love sex, but I love being close to you. And when I'm not close to you, I am miserable, whether you're giving it up or not.
Right.
Right? You could be giving me all the sex in the world, but if I'm not connected to you, something is wrong and something is majorly missing in my life.
Yeah.
And I hope that every man can get to that place. And I'm still learning and I still make mistakes. But that is true ecstasy, is when you are connected to another human like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So I think that, again, when we're talking about the concept of desire and having a desire to be intimate with our spouse, we really have to take a step back and say, like, what's going on in our brain, right? Like, what is blocking us from wanting to be intimate? And do we even know the thoughts that actually intrigue us, the thoughts that actually interest us, or that cause some kind of spark of excitement? Usually women have a hard time understanding this or being able to identify what those things are. So the first thing I want to talk about is stress, because stress is a huge blocker for a woman's natural desire to come through. And so if we take a step back and say, okay, what's going on in my brain? We may just be running through the list, right, of all the things that need to be done. And that just feels stressful. We're like, well, there's no room for variety. I can't even think about variety. Look, we've got homework, we've got baseball games, we've got all the things, the school year is almost ended and we've got to attend 20 events for everyone. So we may find that our brain is really struggling to be interested in anything other than just what needs to be done.
Yeah, because when you're stressed, it just seems like more work.
It does. So when we're stressed, some interesting things happen. Our bodies kind of go on high alert, right? We kind of go into a little bit of a survival mode, like we just need to get through the stuff. But when that happens, we also become almost overreactive and overly sensitive to benign things. So let's say I'm washing the dishes, right? And I'm just kind of in my brain going, okay, these are all the things that we need to do. And if you were to come up behind me and give me a hug, like that could actually really stress me out. And my body might react as if that's a threat, even though that's a beautiful thing that you're coming up behind me and giving me a hug. My brain and my body might react as if, hey, you already have so much going on. The stress is high. We got to get moving on to the next thing. Someone just touched me. Oh no, like it just sends the sparks in all the wrong directions.
So this is a random thought that came to me, but when you talk about variety and stress, because what I'm hearing you say right now is, well, we have to get rid of stress. Okay. Now that's
hard.
That's hard, and it may be impossible. Let's say that you're like, I can't get rid of my stress, so I'm not even going to take the next step. Okay. How about thinking differently? What if you just took the dishes and threw them across the room and said, hey, hubby, one of the things that I might do and I need your help with this, is I'm just going to start throwing the dishes on the ground.
Yes.
And I'm just going to let that go. And I just need you to like back me up and pick them up after or clean it up. And I'm not saying everyone starts throwing your dishes across the room, but sometimes like a little bit of, like a radical shift can take us out of these modes that we get in where we're so stressed out. And I'm not telling you to I don't want to promote arson or anything, but this is a figurative thing I'm saying.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to burn stuff to the ground.
Yes.
Right. And just get rid of it. And maybe it's like, hey, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. I'm done taking my kids to all of their games and driving them around all the time. I'm done. Hubby, I need your help, or kids, I need your help, and we're just going to take the season off. And that might be impossible for you because your kid might be like an all-star athlete and maybe you're going to go pro someday. Probably not, but you may think that that's true, right? Again, back to thoughts.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take too much time here, but this is something that I have found in my life. Sometimes I just need to really react to something super maybe out of character or something to get me out of the mode that I'm in, because getting out of the mode is super important when it comes to stress. If you don't do that, you're just going to be in a cycle where you're just stressed and then maybe you feel good, stressed, maybe you feel good. You know what? Throw your dishes across the room.
Yeah.
And not that you're going crazy, right? You're not going nuts. You're not going to, people might look at you, your kids are going to be like, whoa, mom. But I guarantee you it's going to change the air in that room. And you might be perfectly happy after you do it. Like, hey, sorry, I didn't mean to scare anybody, but I just needed to throw the dishes on the ground.
The dishes are done.
The dishes are done, man.
They will never need to be done again.
And look, interpret that however you want to, but think differently about your stressors and do something different. Do something out of character to get yourself out of the cycle, because you can't just snap your fingers and have all the stress gone.
Yeah.
Even though it is possible with your thoughts, right? With the self-coaching model that you teach to so many people and it helps them. Even through that process, though, while you're learning it, it's not like all of a sudden your stress is gone.
Right.
So think differently, and maybe thinking differently, your first act of rebellion to your bad thoughts is to burn something down to the ground.
Yes, I love it.
Safely, not illegally. Don't break any laws. Don't hurt anybody. Figuratively, burn it to the ground.
Yes. So going along with that, I think this is where variety comes back into play.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we are super stressed, and this is for a lot of moms and working moms, right? Stress can be really high. And so, yes, a lot of times we cannot just lower every aspect of stress in our lives. But being able to put some of that self-care back in a new way with variety, oh my goodness, this can be amazing. And again, this is what people don't think about when it comes to intimacy. But if you're able to say, you know what, I need about 20 minutes of some self-care right here. Like, stress is high, I'm going to take 20 minutes.
That means dance party for Shelly. Like dance party by herself.
Yes.
Or maybe while you're doing the dishes.
Yes, in all forms.
Yeah.
Dance parties in all forms. Right? It could be a dance party. You get your favorite music going. Music is huge to help lower stress. But also, no matter what it is, right? It could be like, okay, just go sit outside for 20 minutes. Put on some music that relaxes you, right? It calms you, gets you in the zone. That little bit of self-care, we don't always connect that to intimacy.
Right.
But guess what?
It is.
When you can lower that stress for those 20 minutes and you remove your mind from the busyness, that becomes variety, a new variety that wasn't already in your day. And now you've experienced something that maybe you weren't planning to experience. It started off high stress, but you're coming in, you're solving a problem. Even if you don't solve it, you're taking care of yourself. There is something magical that happens in that space that now opens you up to being in a place of more neutrality and open to the idea of intimacy. Whereas if you stayed stressed, you're still blocked to intimacy.
So what I love about this is the self-care part of it, because maybe you're not even doing this for the purposes of intimacy with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that isn't even, you can't even think about that yet.
Right.
Do this for you.
Yes.
Do this to increase your joy. Do this to bring more peace into your life. And the natural result of that is that you are going to be more connected to people, because you're not going to be as defensive.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be looking for self-justification to be distant from them as much as you would otherwise. So if you're doing this just for yourself, great. It's going to end up being good for your relationships.
That's right. I love that you're reminding everybody, like, what is the kind of like the root part, that root motivation. Because a lot of times if we're only doing it like, oh, my husband's going to want to have sex, so I should put in 20 minutes of self-care.
Right.
That's not going to feel like self-care. That's going to be like more another layer of stress. But if you really do it for yourself and you're authentic with it, yes, the natural results are amazing.
And you're going to have more variety in your intimacy naturally.
That's right.
And
That's so true.
and it won't be as boring.
That's right.
Right? Because if you're in the bedroom and you're bored, it's probably because things are just rote. And again, it's that cycle.
Yes.
And so take a step back, burn something to the ground, reset for you. And it's okay. This is one of the things I love about marriage is as you discover that you don't have to be like lockstep in every little thing. You need to be an individual.
Yes.
You have to be. You each have to be an individual, because you're both bringing new things to the table, and together you're great.
Yeah.
But that's because you're both unique. So be unique and uniquely care for yourself.
Yes.
And it'll help both of you.
It's so true. Okay, we're going to go on to the second one. And this is really where we can be very fun and creative and explorative to increase our interest
Okay.
in any aspect related to intimacy. But again, it doesn't have to be related, but it can be. So like, if you don't know about the type of arousal that you experience, there's two main ones, and we're not going to get into all that now, but men experience usually one type of arousal and women experience another. If you don't know that, get some interest in that. Like, learn about it. Listen to our podcast. Take our course. We dive into this topic and really go into the details of it.
When you say details, you're like, we get into the details of orgasm for men a little bit because it's a little more simple, but especially for women, and arousal and talking about how to do that.
Yeah.
This is something that I think a lot of people, and especially men, like we just think that we're great lovers and our wives just love us. Well, maybe we don't think that because maybe we've gotten signals that she doesn't. But this is amazing detail.
Yes. And so we talk about something called like an arousal mocktail, right? And the reason we call it that is because there's several ingredients that go into it. And the mocktail could be different with every sexual experience. It doesn't have to be the same.
You're imagining a mocktail, right? But it's broken down into different parts.
Yes, there's different ingredients. And so, I mean, to me, this is so interesting and fascinating. Like, what is going to be a part? What are going to be the ingredients of my arousal mocktail tonight? Or what will they be 4 nights from now or 3 months from now, right? It's like it could always be changing and different. And so what's awesome about that is that it can pique our interest.
Yeah.
We don't have to know all the answers.
Yeah.
It can be changing and fluctuating and very fluid, right? But just knowing, hey, do I know what's in my arousal mocktail? If you don't, it's time to start learning about that, because we can pique our interest, and this is what adds variety.
Yeah.
Is like increasing our interest. I don't, that one's not coming to me. So I just wanted to say really quick what the definition of variety is. It's the state of being different, the absence of sameness or monotony. It's a number of different things, the quality of including many different forms or types of things. And I think what is very underestimated is that if you're a mom and you're working and you're busy, there is a lot of monotony.
Yeah.
And we totally underestimate that we get bored with monotony. Women are sick of monotony. I can't say it.
Monotony.
What am I trying to say? That's a different word. Monotony. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. We're sick of it, but we don't ever think about it. Sometimes we are so bored of just making the dinner and doing the laundry, and maybe we're not angry about it. Maybe we truly want to do these things for our family.
Or maybe you've just accepted that that's just the way it has to be.
Yes.
But it doesn't.
But we may not be realizing that this element of boredom is actually having a huge effect, because what we do is we kind of categorize intimacy and sex in that same list of look at all the things I need to do, and I'm kind of bored of those
Can
things.
I just say that I think men do this too?
Yes.
And when men get in this mode and they get bored, we can still have sex.
Right.
Right. But it is much less meaningful, and it is just a release.
Yes. It's a release of stress, which women don't look at sex as that.
Right. So and there's a lot of Eastern sexual knowledge, like Kama Sutra, Tantric Sex, and I love all those things, by the way, and they're not evil at all, and they're wonderful. If you want to study them, it's really they're amazing as far as just how to make it more meaningful.
Yeah.
But one of the things about Tantric Sex that it focuses so much is on the orgasm and not releasing the energy.
Yes.
And so when men are having sex that way, where it's just a release, you're releasing all that energy instead of using sex as a way to increase energy. And the increased energy is what connects.
Yes.
And so I think the same thing happens for men too. It just looks a little bit different, but it's the same, where if we can figure out how to have this newness and have this connection and excitement and intimacy, our sexual energy, which is a huge part of our core energy, will increase even when we have an orgasm. And for men, ejaculate, and women, when they have orgasm, instead of just feeling like, oh, okay, I'm just dead to the world now, I just want to go to sleep. Being tired is one thing, but feeling like you have no interest in that other person now that you've had that release, that is the opposite of what we're trying to teach.
Yeah, it's so true. So one thing that has to go with interest is that, again, a lot of times women are going to spend most of their thoughts and their focus and therefore their energy like paying attention to the things that get them out of the mood. Mm-hmm. Instead of like being curious and saying, okay, it's 3:40 right now. Is there anything that could get me in the mood right now? Like, to be so curious about yourself. I remember one time you and I think it was super late at night, and we were not getting along, but we were going to bed. And I remember you had said something as we looked out the window. It was like you could see Mars that night. There was something astronomical happening. And I think we were a little bit at odds, and you said something like, oh, we can see Mars. And I was kind of like, I don't even care about Mars right now. And I remember thinking, I wonder about myself right now, right? Because I'm feeling a little bit angry. I wonder if I could pique my interest, myself, right? Because you weren't asking me to do anything. You weren't trying to hint, hey, let's get in the mood. You were pretty sure like there was nothing happening. So I asked myself a question, and it was this. Can I get excited about Mars? Can I really get excited about Mars? Like not in a fake way, like true excitement. And I was like, okay, let's play with this, right? And I'm not going to go into all the details of how it happened, but I became curious. I was like, let's think about Mars. What kind of effect could Mars have on me? Let's play around with this. I let my mind wander and be curious. It had nothing to do with sex. It was just Mars. And it was amazing what happened. And this is why I love this concept, is what our brain can do. I allowed myself to be curious. I allowed myself to be interested in Mars. I didn't get out my computer and look up, anything about Mars or Google it. This is my own brain. Within about 15 minutes, I was completely excited about Mars, and not sexually excited, but I was like, Mars is awesome.
The fact that we can see it and it's so far away and it's so bright and
yes,
the color.
So many things. I became so excited about Mars that what I noticed is that the stress and the anger and the resistance I had towards you and towards being intimate that night, those had left. And because I was now excited about Mars, something that I was not excited about and not planning on being excited about, it surprised me that now I wanted to share my excitement about Mars with you. And then, we had sex and it was awesome. Okay?
Yeah, I remember that night.
So I remember that night so well because it was it was such opposite emotions, and it wasn't us like trying to make up and then have makeup sex. It was nothing like that. This was 100% thought work and being curious and being interested.
And then Mars could be anything, right?
It could be anything, right? I'm not telling anyone you need to be interested in Mars.
Yeah.
The whole point is like I allowed my mind to say, can I be interested in this? What can I find fascinating about something I hadn't thought about during that day? And because it was new and that wasn't in my normal list of chores that needed to be done, it added that variety.
This is one of the reasons why in our bundled course, First Night, First Year, we put questions in the first night and then the first year boxes that we do. We put questions that most people don't ask each other in there, like kind of random, like really curiosity questions.
Yeah.
Because we believe so much in this, and then they're not questions, leading toward, hey, what's your favorite color? And I mean, it's like nothing like that, or what do you think about, this thing happening in the world? They're really random, and I'm not going to tell you because these are trade secrets, and you got to buy our course. But they lead to this kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Where you actually are asking questions about something that is kind of random that most people wouldn't ask another person. And these are the kinds of things we should be asking each other because it takes us to these places that get us out of the cycle.
Yeah.
And this is one way to burn things down. Mm-hmm. Don't burn it down. I guess another way to think about it is, kind of start flying together in a way that you didn't before. And it's new and it's refreshing. And sometimes the answers to those questions will be surprising. And that's the thing. It's really exciting.
It is. And here's the thing, too. This is fun.
It's fun.
It is a fun endeavor to be involved in, right? It's like I go back to that night when I was thinking about Mars and how much just negative emotions I had at, getting into bed. It was negative for me. And what a transformation. And it wasn't like work, like I have to do this. I didn't feel like I had to do it at all. I was like, I'm perfectly happy going to bed mad. I have no problem. But it was the genuine curiosity, the genuine interest that made that whole experience exciting, new, fun, adventurous.
And super hot.
And super hot, that's right. So that is available to anybody and everyone who's listening to this. We can add variety in ways that we never thought of. And so...
Can I just add one more thing to
yes.
that? In some ways, just being grateful for the things around you, do this automatically. This is why gratitude is such an amazing gift.
It is.
It's something to pray for. It's something to seek out. It's something to long for. Because when we're really grateful, we will see things around us that pique our interest and make us more curious.
Yeah.
When we lose gratitude, things just everything kind of gets gray.
Yes.
When we're grateful, there's more color and vibrancy in our lives, and we'll see things that we didn't see otherwise.
Yeah. So I think to wrap this one up, I think I would just say, start asking yourself this question. Like, just look at wherever you are right now listening to this. Just look around the room and just pick something and be like, can I be interested in this? What can I find fascinating about that thing that I'm looking at? Challenge yourself to become fascinated by things that you normally look over and never think twice about, and find the fascination, find the fun, find the beauty. And you're going to realize that that is a fun and awesome experience. It's amazing.
Yeah, it might take you a few times, but it'll happen. It'll click, and you start doing this, the world just expands.
Yes.
And your joy expands. It's awesome.
And once you realize that you can do that with that one thing that you're looking at in your environment, and for women, this is huge. This is a big contributor to our arousal, is what's going on in our environment. So women, this is an awesome way for you, no matter what environment you're in, start looking around, start asking yourself, can I find interest in that? You do that, you are adding variety and interest into your life,
Amen.
Into your intimacy without even realizing it. Okay. Well, we hope that you guys are able to find this podcast helpful, and that you will really experiment with these suggestions that we've talked about today. Because remember, the more you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you can restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you will join us again next week.
Bye.